This one was different. Very different. Let's talk about it. So Pepper Ann is an original Disney animated series that I remember fondly as a kid, always being on and always watching for some reason. Running from 1997 to about 2000. It was on Disney's One Saturday Morning originally, and then it went on to syndication and was broadcast heavily onto Toon Disney, and I think a lot on the Disney Channel around the year 2000 or 2001, possibly at some point. I know it was on the regular Disney Channel for a while, but it was originally on One Saturday Morning and Disney's 1 2, which I did not realize that 1 2 was on UPN, not on ABC, which is very, very odd. But regardless, it's a late 90s show featuring a 12-year-old girl named Pepper Ann Pearson. It's based on a comic strip that was in, I believe, a young woman's magazine called YM. Yeah, it was a teen magazine, which ceased publication in 2004. So I didn't realize, I thought it was a completely original concept, but it turns out it was based on a comic strip. That was new information I'd learned as I started watching it and doing some research for this video. I remembered this vividly being on all the time, and I remember it for probably nothing else more than the theme song, which my sister used to actively mock. She thought it was the funniest thing ever. No disrespect to the lady Kathleen Wilhoit. I totally butchered that, I'm sure, who voiced Pepper Ann. Because she performed the theme song, and she is genuinely a musician as well as the voice. And there is a very big undertone of feminism in this show, and I will get into that in just a little bit, but I want to talk about the show on its own merits for a little bit before I get into that. I'll sort of wrap things up with that, because that's what people tend to focus in on when they talk about this show. But on its own merits, this is a show that comes out around the time that Disney gets Doug, and you see a lot of parallels between this and Doug, outside of the art style, of course, but she daydreams like Doug does. She kind of lives in her own world as a result. She's got sort of a parallel conscience that manifests itself through a mirror. She's basically insane. Doug was just sort of playful, harmless. Oh, my head's in the cloud. Maybe I should see a doctor. Hers is full on. You need to be in an insane asylum. Like, she is nuts. Her actual character is not, in my personal opinion, as likable as I remember. Not even close. I used to think, oh, it's fine. Her and her trio of friends, it's fun and it's enjoyable. But as I've gone back and watched it, my goodness, is she terrible. The entire first season, she is awful to her friends, her mom, her sister, even her cat. She is just terrible, and she doesn't learn. She gets disappointed, doesn't get her way, ends up being satisfied with it at the end, but she doesn't learn to be a better person. She doesn't learn to stop chasing popularity for popularity's sake like her friend constantly reminds her to do. She's always chasing popularity. She always wants to be with that guy Greg, who's like a one-note character. Is it Greg or Craig? I don't know. Either or. She wants to be with the one guy who everybody's like, oh, he's so cool. Even though she's a box of confetti type character. She's not quite a nerd. She's not quite a jock. She's nerdy. She's into rollerblading. She plays video games. You know, she's also feminine. She's kind of the whole package. What's that meme? Get you a girl that can do both. It's that she's that meme personified. That's gonna date this video. Gosh dang it. She's all of those things personified. They don't fit her into one box, and that goes into kind of the show's underarching theme about female empowerment that everybody raves about. Oh my gosh, just the endless virtue signaling about this show in the modern day is just ridiculous. Everybody talks about it. This show is criminally underrated because it was so much feminist empowerment. It was the first Disney Channel animated series directed and created by a woman. It was the first, you know, all of these female first, which fine, whatever, fine. But it harps on and on. First of all, the lady who directed it, Sherry Pollack, she only did season 1. The rest was done by a guy named Brad Goodchild, seasons 2 to 5. She only did one season. And it was the weakest season because Pepper Ann's personality was so obnoxiously bad. Because you think it's going to be like Doug, to where whenever he goes down a bad road, that a voice of reason comes along and snaps him right back. And you think that that's going to be Pepper Ann and her friend Nikki, or her friend, I can't think of what's his name, the Hawaiian kid. Milo. You think one of them is going to snap her back. And sometimes they kind of do. I think her friend Nikki is the better voice of reason. Like, she straight up told her, you're stupid for chasing popularity. Popularity is useless. Because she's still obsessed with it. She's obsessed with her image. She's obsessed with being popular. She's obsessed with being cool, having the latest and greatest things. She's a horribly materialistic, just bratty teenager. The character I feel the worst for in this series is the mother character. Because she's so happy, she's so joy-filled, but yet her daughter just sucks the life out of her. Her daughter's always calling her lame. It's terrible. And some people might say, well, to be fair, some of you ladies in the comments might say, well, to be fair, I was kind of like that growing up. You know, and I regret it, but my sisters weren't like this. I mean, my oldest sister was, she had her moments, but she grew out of that fairly quickly. She had her, we call it her rebellious phase that she had, but she grew out of that fairly quickly, and she's made sure her daughters aren't even close to that, which shows her brilliant mothering abilities. So she had a genuine learning experience. But this to me didn't emulate the real life that I was seeing with my sisters. Or me. We didn't call our mother lame. We disagreed with our mother sometimes. We didn't call her lame. She calls her lame and just, you're embarrassing me in front of everybody. They take the whole you're embarrassing me in front of everybody trope to the highest, most obnoxious possible degree. I don't know if that's a woman thing or just a really just tired trope at that point. 97, I don't know how tired it would have been by that point. Maybe it was just getting started. It feels so unbalanced. This is all in the first season. I'm only midway through season 2. I didn't finish the whole thing because even as I've skipped ahead to future episodes, it really doesn't feel like she improves as a character at all. Doesn't feel like she listens to any of the voices of reason until the very last minute, and then she acts like she knew what they were saying all along. That's what I see repeated over and over again. Like her friend Nikki will tell her, you shouldn't be popular, and she'll go, nah, you don't know what you're talking about. And then when it doesn't work out, she's like, I'm okay with not being popular. I believed that all along. She didn't say, you were right, Nikki. She didn't do that. She's a very stuck-up character, to the point of being obnoxious, but yet this is praised for being a feminist triumph. That's what you want little girls to be, is stuck up and obnoxious. More so than the popular characters in the show. The stereotypical popular characters were more bearable than Pepper Ann was in some moments. All based on my observations. Don't kill me for this. I'm still going through the series, although I don't think I'm going to make a follow-up video to this when I'm done. But as I'm going back and forth between this and Doug, I'm seeing where Doug was a stronger series as far as the coming of age, because they're both the same age, and it's both portraying a similar school experience. And Doug handles itself better. It uses the side characters as a voice of reason far greater than Pepper Ann does. Pepper Ann tries to, but she doesn't. It just feels like she just doesn't learn. She doesn't learn. She doesn't improve. And I know people are going to say, well, that's because they need a trope to keep the show going. But it just makes her an annoying character that I don't want to watch. I'd rather watch a show about her other two friends. I'd rather watch a show about her mom and her sister. It's just, she's an annoying character. She's really, as far as the stories themselves, they're pretty cliche. They're pretty bog standard. You know, they deal with bog standard stuff, but they also deal with some issues that Doug wouldn't touch. Doug got very close to some of these issues, but some of these Doug would absolutely not touch. Jim Jenkins wouldn't have touched it with a 9-foot pole. And for better or worse, mind you. They dealt with a lot of young girl issues for sure, and I think that's why it gets a lot of praise for somehow being a feminist triumph. Even though there were other shows that weren't animated that were dealing with some of those issues, I believe. I mean, people are really fuzzy on their, not that I'm any better, but people are really fuzzy on their history of certain tropes and and issues dealt with in television series. So I agree there were a lot of firsts in this show for its time, but it wasn't Oscar worthy groundbreaking. It really wasn't. It was Doug Light as far as that. The best way I can describe it is Doug Light. It works in some areas, it really doesn't in others. Its animation works. It was done by the guy who did Codename Kids Next Door, Mr. Warburton, and his animation works phenomenally here. I love his art style. I love the design of the town, the objects, the characters. It's all very well animated. The soundtrack, aside from the theme song, is really good. I don't like the theme song. I'm not enduring myself to fans of the series, I know, but I don't like the theme song. Like I said, my sister actively mocked that theme song. I don't know if I said that earlier or not, but she actively mocked it every time it came on. And we both just started laughing like crazy. It just is, I don't know. It's just the way that it was performed. It felt over the top and just like way too serious about it. I don't know. It was just such a try-hard performance that it came across as kind of hokey. It just, I don't know. It was a fun memory I have with my sister for sure. She actively mocked that thing, man. But it's is it the worst Disney Channel? No, it's not the worst Disney Channel animated series I've seen of this era. No, it's not that bad. But it is not great. It loses me in a lot of places. I don't know if it's because of a blatant ideological undertone or if it's for the fact that it tries so hard to do the Doug formula, but it tries to turn it on its head because it's a girl, where it doesn't need to turn it on its head because it's a girl. If Pepper Ann just fit into one of the stereotypical boxes, I think it would have been fine. I think they could have broke molds with having her just be a standard nerd and having that be okay. But she's not a standard nerd. She's an everything. She's into what is cool, what is nerdy, what is. She's all of these things, and I don't remember people being like that in the real world. I still don't know people being like that in the real world. People are very much in their own little boxes. They're not as bad stereotypically as Hollywood says. Like the nerds aren't just not into sports, you know. But it would have been better if they had gone with a stereotype. The reason Doug worked was because he was a bit of a nerd, but he wasn't entirely a nerd. He was just kind of an average Joe. Kind of liked a little he liked a little bit of everything, kind of like she does, but he wasn't preachy about anything. He didn't go on any sort of environmental tirades. Most of his stuff was seen through the lens of his imagination. Here they use the lens of an imagination to make her seem more obnoxious than she already is. It's not utilized very well. And her conscience character is probably the best thing she has, and she constantly ignores it. Her mirror conscience character is the best thing because it draws her back into being reasonable. But instead of having her mother or her friends be this voice of reason, it's constantly this mirror character. It's just, it makes her seem insane. I just don't like it. I don't like it as much as Doug. I don't like it as much as some of the other One Saturday Morning cartoons that are on that block. It's just a weaker show. I'm going to finish it because I want to see ultimately how it turns out, if there's any further development of this character. And there may be. So you don't need to tell me in the comments if there is. I'm gonna go see for myself. But I mean, let me know what you think, honestly. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, if you think that this is a fantastic show for a different reason, if you interpret it a different way, I don't know. It's just I'm watching it for the first time after years and knowing that I enjoyed it as a kid, but I don't really enjoy it now. And I certainly don't enjoy the way people talk about it now, because they're making it way more ideological than it even was at the time. That doesn't endear the show to anybody. That just tries to put it in a modern mold that it wasn't in. It might have tried to break the mold outside of what was available at the time, but it wasn't Emmy Award winning worthy. It had a fair run. It had 5 seasons. That's solid. It had two less than Doug. So it didn't do bad at all. It wasn't just thrown off as a Doug clone, which I think it very easily could be in some people's minds. I'm going to give it more benefit of the doubt than that and say it's a Doug clone, but it does try to differentiate itself in some key areas. It just really doesn't succeed, in my opinion. So that's my thoughts on this. Thank you very much for watching the Toony Talk. Let me know what you think down below. I will see you guys next time. God bless. Have a good one. Peace.